They train helicopters and
in that
and
town? Okay. Did they ask you if you wanted to go in a certain area, or were you just going to stay in the infantry?
well, when I first went in at Camp Robinson, they asked me what branch I wanted, and they were offering Navy, Air Force, Army, and I was young and energetic and all, and I told them, I want the toughest part you got.
Oh, mercy.
So they assigned me to the Army Infantry.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my friends were in the Air Force. Later talked to them in Navy. I had one friend, classmate, that from the time we got out of school and reported, he joined the Merchant Marines, and at that time it was not a branch of the service, so he was in there about a month, he said, and the draft called him back out and said, "Sir, you were drafted back in April, and so you need to choose whether you're going to be in the Navy, Army, Air Force, or what. You got to come back out of the Merchant Marines." And so he took the Navy, and he was on one of those little destroyer cruisers in the South Pacific.
Okay. Now, I understand also that the Air Force was not really a part, they didn't have their own distinct unit. They were part of the Navy, and they had a little bit of an Army.
Yeah.
You had Air Force you had some Air Force in the Navy and some Air Force in the Army.
Yes. Yeah, I had a good friend that served in the Air Force. He went to Florida, I believe it was, for his training.
Okay. All right. When you got through your training, what happened then?
We completed our 17 weeks training in Camp Walters, and I had a delay en route. Stop off at Hot Springs for a week, and then on my way to Baltimore, Maryland. And it went by very fast. The Army, or the military, sent us by train from Camp Waters, Texas to Hot Springs, and then got back on at Hot Springs and went on up to Fort Meade, Maryland. And as we were walking to the camp there, we saw a lot of men building stone walls there. And I said, "Oh my," I said, "Look at that." They said, "Yeah, those are German prisoners." I looked at them and I said, "Oh my goodness, we have to, there's one there that looks just like my brother." Mm-hmm. I said, "We're going to have to fight fellas like that." I said, "Boy, so I kind of worried about that a little bit. And but when we got on in and got our equipment and all, they issued me a lot of jungle equipment. So I said, "Well, it looks like I'm going to be going to South Pacific and be fighting the Japanese," and I didn't feel so bad, you might say.
Okay.
Because at that time, see, I didn't know too much about their culture and race and all like that. I was relieved. So we stayed at Fort Meade, Maryland, and we had Thanksgiving dinner there. And then they shipped us out to Camp Shanks, New York. And we had about 2 or 3 weeks there. And they'd let us go to Times Square in New York City. We could ride the ferry free and get off on 42nd Street. And we didn't have any money to amount to anything. And we walk around Times Square looking at those big tall buildings and really enjoy seeing something we'd never seen in our lives. And that was the first place that I'd ever seen white women and Negroes dancing when you look into those bars and all, and that was new to me. The blacks and whites were separated at Hot Springs pretty much, and I didn't know too much about the black race at that time. And the reason I mentioned that is that since then I've learned a lot about forgiveness, forgiving Japanese and all, and about races and all, how we're all created by one God, one Creator, and it has really helped me to be able to forgive all of the prejudice and things that I had built up in my mind about different races when I was just a young person. And but anyhow, we got on the ship, coincidentally, you might say, December the 7th in New York.
Now this is
Harbor.
43?
It was in 43.
Okay.
December of 43. It was on December the 7th. And we all went, we had bunks down below. It was a kind of a freighter ship, one of the Liberty ships built by Kaiser's out in New York, out in California. And we had 1,500 troops on it, and then jeeps in crate boxes, and C rations and K rations. It was kind of a freighter, and it really wasn't a troop ship. But anyhow,
How many troops, do you know how many troops were on there?
There were 1,500 troops on it, and a regular troop ship, I think, carries 5,000 to 10,000 on it, I believe it was. I've heard some of my buddies talk about that big ship going to Europe with so many on it and coming back. Well, we sat there in the harbor there for 3 days, and then at night we took off, and that Atlantic Ocean was so rough and stormy and everything. We all got seasick, and we stopped off in the night there at Norfolk, Virginia, and a boat, one of those rescue boats that they have on a ship. They let it down, and it went over there to the port, and we said, wonder what's happening, And then it came back, and turned out they had taken some orders over there, papers and everything, and got some back evidently, and then they raised it back up on the ship, and we took off. I called that a boat, and those sailors on there quickly corrected me and said, "This is not a boat, this is a ship, and you be sure to call it a ship." So I learned something from the Navy right there. But anyhow, we were so seasick that we just, we'd run down to the galley and eat. And then by that time, that we ate twice a day. By the time they fed all of us once, it was time to line up again and be fed again. And we got down around Florida, and the storm passed or whatever we ran, and it was just so smooth and warm. We just lie out there on the deck, you might say, and that cured our seasickness, I guess.
Okay.
But then we went through the Panama Canal, and when we were going through the Panama